Kurtis Anderson is the Internet Director of the Knight Group, a Canadian group with stores across Western Canada and the USA. As you will hear, Kurtis has been with the Knight Group for many years. He's grown into a director role, learning and collaborating with some incredible groups. For those who don't know you, which is probably very few people in the automotive world, kind of a celebrity as I understand. What led you to automotive? What was your career path like?
Strangely, I stumbled into this. I mean, I've always been a car guy. My dad was a muscle car guy, still is. Grew up, I worked in auto body shops, that kind of stuff. But I moved to Regina about just about 15 years ago. And I saw an ad in the newspaper of all places. And it was very, very vague. And I think it said something along the lines of, we're looking for a young, energetic individual for an exciting new position. And that was it. And I was like, that's me. So I applied for the job, came in for the interview with Kevin Knight and Joel Kershane, who's, still with us, and found out that they were looking to have somebody handle internet sales, inbound internet inquiries. And this was, pretty early in terms of, somebody being in that position. So we didn't know what it was going to look like every day. We didn't, have any idea how to measure metrics and how to measure success. But I started and Kevin right away got me into an Internet 20 group with NADA. I was able to go to digital marketing conferences and really kind of kickstarted my learning at a very early time when I was, really green to the industry. And part of the reason why he wanted somebody who was not, already in sales and automotive is he didn't want to bring somebody in with, bad sales habits in terms of, how they were going to handle, the customers that were inquiring.
That's really interesting. I've heard a lot of owners, operators hiring with no sales skills across the board because of that exact reason, the bad habits in sales.
Yeah, I'd had some experience with sales. I mean, I ran my own painting franchise with, college pro painters. I took business management in school, got a diploma from the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology with a focus on entrepreneurship. So, there was some synchronicities in terms of my experience as well as, my education. But I don't think, maybe things are different now, but there's not maybe a formal education that you could really take to step into what I'm doing. I mean, there's certainly pieces that you can pick up, but it's been a lot of learning on the job, learning from industry professionals and, collaborating with like-minded individuals.
Was that Joel's store that you started in? And what was that?
Joel was a sales manager. So this was at Crestview Chrysler, was the very first Knight Group store. So Kevin's dad, Mr. Edward Knight, started the store. Many moons ago. I think it was in the family for close to 50 years. So I worked out of that store for 12 years, where I lived every day, and we sold it in December of 2022. So when we sold the store, I went to 100% remote. I stayed in Regina here where we don't have any operations anymore. I've got an office on my own in a co-working space, so I get to see people every day still. Some pretty interesting industries and companies in this building. So, I've been through, I counted them the other day, I think 28 buy sells with the Knight Group over the last, about 10 years. So either on the buying or the selling side, which has afforded me a lot of opportunities for learning. I mean, different OEMs, you inherit a lot of stuff on a buy sell.
No kidding. A lot of problems, but a lot of good things too, and positive challenges, I imagine. I didn't know that about you, Kurtis, it was from a newspaper ad. That's also a really cool thing, back when newspaper was a thing. But you've been through the whole gambit with the group. That's exciting.
Yeah, I started as they called me the internet sales manager. So I was handling every single inbound inquiry from the website, Auto Traders, Kijijis, as well as, doing my best to try and manage the website. At this time, we didn't have any pricing on the majority of our cars. There was a belief that if you didn't have pricing, people would call or email you. Well, the downside to that is everybody just wants to know what the price is, and they don't like the price, you're never going to hear from them again. So
Yeah, that seems like a common practice actually right now. I'm noticing a lot of independents, a lot of subprime stores not listing prices and really trying to keep that secretive, whether
Yeah, and
it's
subprimes is such a different game. They're really they're hinging on what the bank, I think, is going to approve, right?
Mhm.
So if they can, they can get an approval and they can make a car work, and they can make the payment work, that's really what that game is. It's not so much a market pricing, right? It's going to be, how can we best get this consumer in a car, hopefully help them turn their credit around and, then put them into maybe a prime loan in the next year or 2 years. But it's a really interesting game. We operate in that space a little bit as franchised stores, but
Mhm.
not nearly the same way, an only subprime store would.
Right, right. So what, like, I know you said you were a car guy. What really attracted you to this opportunity? Like, what was the aha moment there for you?
I think one of the big things was seeing that, even early on then, we knew that this was going to be the future of automotive. The more, I started reading and researching, there's talk that salespeople are going to go away. There's talk that it's going to be an all online experience. It's, a way to kind of a way to future proof, a career a little bit, right? I mean, if everything but the online presence is going away, well, the guy that handles, all of the online, well, he should be pretty safe. The other thing is that things were moving pretty rapidly at that time. It still are. I mean, I'd argue they're almost moving faster now. So there's a lot of excitement. Every day is going to be a little bit different, and just tons and tons of ingenuity in this industry in general.
That's something that I'm really excited to talk about shortly here, because I mean, things are moving so fast, and as you guys see, day to day, new technologies coming out, software. Is the marketing side and technology still your favorite part about this, or is the people like what's the one thing that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I think it's, the marketing technology is really interesting, but I think applying that to, the actual sales process,
Uh-huh.
I think that's the most difficult part. And I think that's where there's the biggest disconnect in terms of stores having success. You can have the best, marketing plan, vendors, programs, everything in the world. But if you don't have, the sales, this, not necessarily the team, but the sales process and the connection between the two to back it up, it's going to be a disjointed experience for the consumer. There's still, in a lot of stores, a big disconnect between what the consumer experiences in their online venture, even on your own website, to what's going to happen, when they come to the store. And some of that's just the break in communication between, what we're doing, what the technologies are doing, what all of these vendors that we're working with are doing, and communicating that to the bottom line salespeople. So I think it's, a combination of working with the salespeople, sales managers, GSMs, GMs, and working with our marketing teams and vendors.
Is solving that disconnect between the customer and the dealership, is that what keeps you going? Is that like the reward that motivates you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, if we can do a better job there, I know that we're going to have a leg up on a lot of the competition. I know that we're going to be in better shape, and we're gonna have success when times are tough. There's always some form of low hanging fruit to pick up when you start to look at conversion rates, and whether that be from website visitor to lead, or from lead to contact, or contact to show, or show to purchase. There's always a place to kind of move the needle a little bit. And a lot of that comes in, working with our people.
Right, right. So with all these different stores and disconnects, how do you create a unified approach? I know there's a lot of groups out there that are very, um, I don't want to use the word corporate, but they're not put together in terms of design and brand and mission. I feel like they're all rowing in slightly different directions. It really seems like Knight has that dialed in. What makes that a success for you guys?
Yeah, and I describe some groups as corporate. We're, you know, I don't want to say the opposite of that, but very different. Our owner does a really great job of empowering the GMs to make decisions, but also we've got great communication within the group. So, we've got an internal 20 group that the guys participate in. I'm the central point in terms of the marketing, but the GMs still, get to make their own calls. The sales managers are empowered by, their GMs. So there's differences with OEMs, differences with product, differences with locations in terms of what they need, but there is still just that internal communication of, hey, this is what's working best. Let's implement this everywhere. So I think that's really what it comes down to is, willingness to listen and, the continued communication. I mean, every single one of our operators, they all talk to each other, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly. We've got some internal, communications that they're always doing, whether it be by text or email as well. So that's, I think, what really, helps everyone kind of going in the same direction. I do joke that having, 15 stores across US and Canada with a bunch of different GMs is like herding cats, but it's some of it is unavoidable just because of the different OEMs and again, the different product and different consumers that we're dealing with.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot of different, all the different OEMs. I mean, any groups listening understand that they all have different policies and way of going about things and different brand guidelines and trying to make things as cohesive as possible for the group, but while balancing those is probably very difficult for you.
I think it's getting more and more difficult too. I think as the OEMs are starting to get a little bit more involved in things, or different OEMs are. I mean, I can take our Volkswagen store as a good example where, we had a site that was entirely Knight branded. We've got a Knight brand book with our, specific colors and fonts and the way that things are going to look. And recently VW changed their brand guidelines and now everything looks 100% Volkswagen. They're trying to ensure that the retailer sites look very similar to what's happening at tier one. And that's the direction that the OEMs decided to go. And we've got to obviously fall into that, but find the places to still insert, the Knight policies, the Knight best practices, the Knight branding where we can. And you kind of have a mesh of a little bit of both. It's really great to get the OEM support in a lot of these programs, but it can handcuff you in a lot of ways where if you do have strong group branding, it becomes very difficult to carry that through. We had a vision when, about a year and a half ago when we relaunched all of our new Knight US stores to have them all look the same, feel the same color scheme. And, as time goes on and the OEMs change their requirements, they kind of get further and further apart. But the core functionality and the tools that we're using and the processes that we're using, although things may not look the same, they are functioning a lot the same way.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I feel like OEM, and I mean, this isn't just the auto industry, this is every franchise ever, but OEM restrictions commoditize the product. It really is difficult to take the brand and put it inside of, Volkswagen or Subaru, all these brands. It's very difficult to stand out.
Yeah. And, when you start getting, there's a lot of OEMs that are involved now or have been involved for years with intermediaries. And, we kind of joke, some of them are like the modern day mafia and, they're kind of that middleman between the OEM and the dealer. And it adds another layer that while they're intended to be there as a resource, can make things a little bit more difficult. So I think a lot of it comes down to being in communication with whoever that intermediary is, being in communication with, your reps at the OEM level and being in really good communication with your vendors. Thinking about all these things as partnerships and, trying to get the best out of them. You can take, the best product in the world. And if you don't have, great buy-in or you don't have a great performance manager, you're going to get subpar results. So, alternatively, you can take a pretty, ill-performing, so to speak, product. And if you really buy into it and, customize it the way that you want, you can get really great results from it.
What's something or a tool maybe or a strategy that used to work really well for your stores that isn't performing anymore?
Hmm. I I think I've understood this for a while, but I think our sales teams maybe are starting to understand that more leads does not equal more sales. So, just because we're creating more, opportunities by getting a form fill, et cetera, from the website, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to sell more cars. So, you can put up a lot of roadblocks on a site to create a lead, so to speak. But you're creating a lot more, maybe busy work for your people. You have to think about what the tool or the form is doing on the site in terms of creating value for the consumer. Why are they giving you their information? What are they getting out of this? And how is that taking them to the next step down the funnel? If we have, if we've got a lead gate really early in a trade tool, um, yeah, you can get more leads, but the customer only filled it out just so that they could get, their trade value. And if they, maybe don't like the numbers that they received from your trade tool, you may never hear from them ever again. So despite the fact that you've got their contact information, you're not having a meaningful connection with that consumer.
So it sounds like you're saying is removing as much friction as possible for the consumer to understand the product or the offer or the price, and then they can make a decision really if they want to go down that funnel. It seems like that's probably what you're describing.
Yeah, I think there still is a balance there. I mean, I don't know if our stores and the industry is 100% ready to remove all friction at this
Mhm.
point. I mean, it's a very complex thing, or can be a very complex thing, buying a car. I mean, if you think about it, it's the second largest purchase most people will make. So there certainly is a valuable place for our product specialists, for salespeople, finance managers, sales managers, for them to be involved and have a conversation. Uh, so I think there is kind of that balance of having everything available for the consumer to 100% buy the car, and having that interaction with people at the store. Now, there certainly is a place for buying a car 100% online. I don't think it's realistic that all transactions could go that way. I mean, you start to bring conversations around complicated credit, trade-ins, as much as we can simplify, trade-ins by doing things back and forth by video, etc. There's still, again, that communication, with somebody at the store. So yeah, I mean, you want transparency, but yeah, you have to, I think you have to bring value to a consumer for them to give you their insurance.
Right. This is kind of a hot take or a hot question. Is marketing sales?
Yes and no. Um, you're I mean, you could argue that it's the beginning of the sales process, right? I mean, either creating interest. I mean, if you take somebody who's not in the market right now and you serve them the right message or offer and you put them into the market, okay, well, is that sales? There's also, times when somebody's already in the market and then they find your marketing, you took them a little bit further down the funnel. So yeah, I think traditionally a lot of people will say that sales is, the sales process of transacting. But because now, the transaction kind of with a lot more tools can start more and more online, where is that line?
Right. I asked that question because you got 15 stores under your belt to manage, and I imagine the sales teams, I mean, in most companies blame marketing and marketing blames sales. So I imagine that trickles down to you at the top or climbs up the ladder.
I think there's less and less of that than there used to be. And, especially like within our group, we're really trying to have more of that communication with involving our sales managers. Okay, what are the offers? What are the things you want to portray? What's important to you? And then, you certainly hope that the sales managers are having those same conversations with their teams. But, it's especially important for me being 100% remote. I'm not in a building with these people, right? I mean, I could be this, I'm a wizard behind a curtain just pulling these levers, but it's really important to have these conversations with the individual stores, and they're the ones that know their product and their customer best. So we need their input to make things more effective. And, when we get their input and things become more effective, they start to put the two and two together, and then they get more and more involved because they're having success, right? I mean, when we're selling lots of cars and, servicing lots of cars and everyone's making lots of money, people are really happy. When things are a little bit slower, things can get, a little bit more complicated. But it's also that opportunity to really stop and look and go, okay, what is absolutely working right now, and how are we defining that it's working, and what's maybe not working right now. So, with the way that car sales have been, the last handful of years, things have been pretty wild up and down, but it's given us, a lot of good reasons to stop and dig things apart and go, okay, where are we spending our money? What's working? What's not working? How are we defining success with, whether it be a third party or, a marketing tactic, a tool on the website? And what I've personally started doing a lot of is really dissecting, who is reporting, in a standardized way, and who's not, and how can we push them to help, report in a standardized way so that we can measure the effectiveness of everything in the same way.
And I imagine that's a whole problem. I mean, marketing, it's hard to track everything, but that clarity just helps everybody improve and get better. You had mentioned balancing your different approaches between marketing methods, like let's say traditional or like radio, print, newer strategies, newer technology. How are you guys adapting to the new modern era? Because car dealers are notorious for living in the past, we'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that I work in a very progressive group, and I've been able to help mold that over the last 14 years with the group as well. But we started pulling out of a lot of traditional methods of advertising many years ago in favor of more trackable methods. And even with that, there is a place for traditional marketing. I think it comes down to how, what tools can we implement to be able to attract their effectiveness, and again, deciding what defines success with this campaign. And you have to look, if you look at the sales funnel, right, and you have to look at saturating that bottom part of the funnel. So if you're not, if we're not saturating the VIN specific or model specific search intent, then it doesn't make a lot of sense to start to go back all the way up the funnel. But if you don't have anything in the top of the funnel, you're not putting people in, to come all the way down into the bottom. So having, determining what the right marketing mix is for your OEM, for your location, for your current allocation of cars. I mean, we've got a Toyota store that, to this day, we have very few new cars online because we just don't have any cars. It's an excellent problem really to have. Toyota's done an amazing job there. But
Yeah, I actually just interviewed the GM of Kelowna Toyota, Jamie Caban, yesterday. The episode will probably be live just before this, so I'll spill the beans on it. But he's talked about during COVID, they had over 1,000 new orders and no vehicles on the lot. And they're still facing that today. I think they had 3, as of yesterday, they had 3 new vehicles sitting there. So Toyota is killing it, and it's definitely a good problem to have.
Well, and you almost wonder, did they, have they intentionally, and I don't know much about the manufacturing process, but have they intentionally slowed it down too much? Where, if somebody's waiting, and I know personally I've run into this in my life, where somebody's ordered a car, they're waiting, and they've decided, I'm not going to wait anymore. I'm going to go buy something else. Now, the store or the manufacturer may not care at this point because guess what? There's another 5 seats for that car because of all the pent-up demand. But what does that do for long-term loyalty as well? I mean, Toyota one of the biggest things that they've got going for them is this loyalty. I mean, they've got great product as well, but if they have all of this loyalty and, taking people out of leases and putting them back in another one 6 months early, and, what does that do slowly when people can't get a new car? I mean, how many defectors do you get? And I don't know what the answer is. I'm sure there's some data out there.
I would love to see that because I know loyalty has like decreased faster than ever across brands. I used to be very loyal to Stellantis, and now I just like happen to sit in other vehicles and driving more different things and experiencing different brands. I'm like, hey, these are pretty good. This isn't so bad. So
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I worked in a Stellantis store for, 12 years. It was, for all their faults, it was, I love Jeep and I love Ram, although I've never owned one. But I'm, now that I'm not in that store, I'm driving some other products, and you can see how it would be really easy for a consumer to change. I mean, there's a comfort in getting into, a similar car, like just even the media centers, I think of all the time, right? Just
Huge.
knowing how to use a media center. Driving a car is not that different for one to the other, right? I mean, if you can put it in drive and you can use signal lights and, and turn the wheel, great. I think the difficult part is always the media center. So, once you make that change with the media center, or, you get used to using another one, I think it's kind of open game.
Yeah, the whole user experience of that is so important. I know I've gotten so frustrated with my media center that I have now, and it's like, I love the car, but if that media center was different, I'd probably keep it for a lot longer.
Yep,
or be
absolutely.
happier. You said data. I think that's really important. What role does data play? I know it's more increasingly important than ever. So how are you guys leveraging your data?
Yeah, I mean, whenever possible, if there is, and there's almost always a piece of data available, data, I don't know, I always get raked over the coals for how I pronounce it, especially when I go to my 20 groups and with all my American friends. But, regardless of what my feelings might be about something, I always take a second to go, okay, great. Let me take a look and see what the data actually supports, because I've certainly been wrong before, just in terms of, hey, I don't like the way this looks, but guess what? If it performs better, it doesn't matter what my feelings are about it. And it's an argument I think a lot of marketing teams have with their GMs or sales managers or owners. We do a lot of things in this industry to appease, that kind of upper management or ownership. And banners are, a very divisive topic about this. Hey, we got to make sure we've got our banners on the homepage. Hey, we've got to have, 10 offers. And there's an increasing amount of data that shows that consumers just don't care. Some of that has to do with what the content is that we're putting up. Some of that has to do with how much content we're putting up. But yeah, I mean, the click-through rates and engagement is often very, very low on something like that. But if visually the sales team or the ownership can't see that the offers are there right on the homepage, they might feel like we're maybe not getting the message out there, when in reality, the message is getting out in a lot of different ways. We're getting it out, in targeted email offers, in text campaigns. It's being injected into search, into display, into video marketing. And that person might not be the target of that advertising because they're not, in fact, in the market, which just really means that our advertising dollars are working in the way that they should. The people that are supposed to see the ads are seeing them, and the people that, maybe aren't in the market, we're not wasting our advertising dollars there. And efficiency is becoming more and more important. A lot of dealers, with lower volume, their budgets are being squeezed a little bit. And we really need to look at what's the most efficient way to get our message in front of somebody who's actually in the market to buy a car. And there is more and more tools available to help us do that. We're relatively new to it, but we've got, a handful of our stores on a CDP, on a customer data platform. And it's allowing us to really start to do a better job of using our own first party consumer data. I mean, when Kevin bought, a lot of these stores, he didn't just buy them for the building and the cars and the people that work there. It's these massive databases of consumers that have bought and serviced their cars. And, how do you leverage the probably biggest asset that you have?
I'll tell you that data has been very beneficial to us as well from you guys. So very helpful being able to clearly aggregate different custom audiences and leverage that into advertising. It's a game changer, really.
Yeah, I think that's a question that marketers and stores need to ask of their vendors as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to and or willing to use the data that we can provide you with? The answer is no. Probably keep looking, right? Somebody is going to, and even if they don't know how to use it right now, a lot of these targeting tools are very new. If somebody is willing to go and do their homework and find out how they can integrate the data, they're probably a great partner for you, right? And that's the experience we've had with, you and your team right away when we had the information available. It's okay, great. How can we get access? How can we use this to make our ads more effective and, again, more efficient, right? I mean, the days of sending tens of thousands of visitors to your site and not looking at, how long they're spending on the site, what's the engagement time, and at the end of the day, the key events, conversions that they're getting, or should be long over. I mean, it's certainly over from us. You send me 10,000 visitors and nobody converts on the site, you may as well have sent me nobody.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's from our point of view, like when we have these opportunities to capitalize on your data, like why wouldn't we? It just doesn't make sense for a vendor not to. It literally just makes everybody better. Like it's a no-brainer. So
yeah, great news. You spent less money and you got better results. I mean, what's a better story to tell?
No.
And you did it with, your own data and these other tools that you're already paying for, right? So those tools have allowed us to, while the tool costs us money, but it's allowed us to spend less money, less advertising dollars, consolidating some of the services, right? I mean, there are so many $2.99s, $3.99s, $4.99s, $5.99s, all of these tools and services that dealers keep adding on because they're being approached by vendors relentlessly. The OEMs are serving up these new certified products endlessly. And next thing you know, you stacked on, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 services, sometimes, 10 widgets on your website. And often, they're doing overlapping things. So they're also creating mixed messaging to the consumer. So if you can centralize where your communications are coming from, and because of that, you can send a consistent message to your consumers. And when the consumer actually tells you, hey, either I'm interested to buy a car, everybody knows that, or stop messaging me, everybody knows that, the consumer has a better experience as well. Managing your data in 17 different silos is very, very difficult, right? I mean, if somebody calls in and says, hey, stop emailing me, and then the dealer has to go update that in their DMS, in their CRM, they've got to contact, 3 different vendors to tell them, hey, stop sending them an email because we didn't know who actually sent them the email. It can be very, very frustrating for a consumer, and you're often, breaking laws or legislations.
Right. Yeah, there's so many different policies, and you guys are in different provinces and states, so that doesn't make it easy.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we picked California as the first U.S. state to do business in, and California is not a very litigious state, as everyone knows. So,
yes, it makes things difficult for sure. You said a second ago the custom data. Yeah, we spent less and got better results, and it's also CPM and eCPM, like the effective cost per, even if that cost is higher and your ad spend's higher, but you have a way better close rate. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So comparing those two KPIs are important as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking at, leads doesn't equal sales, right? And dissecting the opportunities that you're given and, what the conversions are. And sometimes you can't equate it to sales, but, if you can equate it to a contact ratio, right? If 50% of the people we never make contact with, not a great source. There could be various reasons why people don't buy a car, right? I mean, it could be a broken sales process on the floor, which I may or may not be able to have any input on, but it could be, it could be environmental as well, right? I mean, if we just don't have the right product mix because things are constrained at consumer or at OEM level still, there could be a lot of people in the area who just, can't get bought because the credit's not great and, there's negative equity, et cetera. So I wouldn't say that those are necessarily a failure on marketing because we're still generating people that are coming into the store. And that's the hardest thing to do is get people, in front of our team so that our team can do their job.
Right. Aside from data, what are some other changes that you've made that really have elevated either the close rate, engagement, or appointments, customer experience? Maybe it's a piece of technology, maybe it's a system in the store.
Yeah, we changed our CRM at, almost every single store in the US. I've gone to a new CRM at some stores in Canada we're a little newer with, but we moved to Drive Centric at the stores in California, and there was an immediate impact. So, even just looking at, we always look at internet leads because they're just easy to track. And sometimes it drives me crazy that we don't maybe pay the same attention to phone ups, and we're getting better there. But the close ratio immediately went from, like 3-4% to 8% at a lot of stores. And,
Significant.
I think some of that is the system was better. Some of that was we're on their Genius system. So we've got some AI doing a little bit of follow-up, which is helping, create that layer and prevent things from falling through the cracks. And then another part of that is, okay, it's fresh. There's fresh training. And then the bigger part is management buy-in as well. You can take a store like our Elk Grove Dodge store as a great example, and, a great leader in Moreno at that store. He lives in the CRM. And you don't get that at a lot of stores where the general manager is literally in the CRM every day, looking at opportunities, understanding, what the consumers need, getting involved in deals. And you really felt that this system better allowed him to be able to see those opportunities. He wasn't having to dig through, 17 different layers and 5 different screens to be able to see who's a consumer that's buying a car, who's having a conversation in front of us.
Yeah, Marino can sell snow to a polar bear. It's he's pretty calculated and driven, and he lives inside that
and
thing.
the pleasure of working with him. I want to say it's 10 plus years now. And I worked physically in a store with him, and now being able to collaborate with him, in a larger store as well is always really fun.
What challenges have you guys faced integrating new technologies?
And whether or not they talk to each other, I think is part of it. I mean, so we've got this new great CRM, but because of our own setup with our DMS, we've got a lack of integration. Now, we are probably going to solve this come January, just with, a little bit of revamping of what we're doing. But we've got essentially 2 DMSs at a handful of stores, which I had never run into before, but it's because of, the way the teams like to desk deals, et cetera. So just disconnection of services. And often, when you're looking at dealing with a new vendor, they'll tell you, hey, great, this is how it works. It integrates 100%. That may not always be true. And whether it's because they're not educated, they're telling you a bit of a stretch, or there was something unforeseen that came up, you really have to do your due diligence in understanding how the data flows work and asking those key questions, or asking, hey, do you have another dealer that works with X product and X product where they're actually communicating effectively? You can go, would you be willing to share their contact information? You can make a call to that dealer and find out the real story on how it works. Because as a vendor, they're not in the store, right? Maybe they're there visiting, but they don't get a chance to actually see in daily life, how do these two things communicate with each other? And because there are so many products that we're often, adding on, there's a high chance that some of them don't talk to one another. And I think that's a really big struggle because, in my position, again, not being in the store and wanting to make decisions based on data, if the two systems don't talk, I'm not getting the full picture of what's happening.
Right, right. And very timely because we're doing the same thing with you guys right now. I'm trying to solve the connection pathway, I guess, and see what that
Yeah.
looks like. And do we have to build our own system to do this? And it's all fun and games until you have to deal with APIs.
Well, and some of these big companies, they just, maybe they don't want to play ball, or it's just not of interest in using their resources, right? If you are, we're talking 3 stores in the grand scheme of things of thousands of dealers they deal with, it's pretty low on the priority level, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more, we have the benefit of being at least somewhat of a medium-sized group where we can say, hey, you know what, we've got 8 stores using this product. We'd like you to help us here. And, there's a handful of companies we work with that have got open APIs who are willing to work with anybody. Great. That makes things a little bit easier.
Yeah, I know there's some great software companies. PBS is actually one of them. They're very open to partnership
On an open
programs.
API. And
It's
I
great.
think they're the only privately owned DMS company at this point.
I believe you're right.
I wouldn't quote me, but I think that's what I've heard.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I was at the ACE conference a bit ago and talked to one of their main executives there, and we had a really good conversation about it. But yeah, API is open, so fair game.
Yep, absolutely.
What else is going on in your world? Like, what are you looking forward to in the near future in the advertising space?
Just what's around the corner. The minute that we think we have things figured out, things are starting to run a little bit smoothly. Something new comes into my world. And whether that be because, I've gone to a 20 group meeting and someone's turned me on to, okay, what's next and great come in the industry, or one of my general managers calls me and says, hey, when I got a new vendor, I'm changing this system or changing that system. And I joke that they're blowing it up, but it's really all in an effort and a bid to keep us moving forward. Because if, we're just happy and things are stagnant, all of the other progressive dealers around us, they're moving things forward. So I'm really, really fortunate to be in the 20 group that I'm in. INT1 with NADA. I've been in the group. I was gone for a couple of years, just kind of through COVID and not being able to make it with a young son, but I'm back in the group, and it's just a room full of all digital marketers and, the best of the best. And we open our books to each other and share. We're all non-competing, so we can share our best practices, and we always have a best idea competition. So, you come present your best idea. The number of times I take a best idea home and I'm able to implement the entire thing or pieces of it, at least in one store, if not the whole group, it's, really helps move us forwards.
Yeah, you took a best idea and implemented it into the auto mall in California. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Got to see that play out. What's a best idea that you brought to the table that you can share?
Oh, well, one of the ones I shared was, Moreno's flash sale, and not, not the idea of the flash sale, but was really more the execution of it.
Mm.
And, in how we were executing it across all of the platforms, and, just kind of how all of the systems work together, and how it, it would generate additional activity, and not just for the period that we were running the sale, but when the sale ended and, prices ultimately went back up, how we would continue to have consumers reach out, hey, I saw this price just went back up, can we get, the old deal, et cetera. So it wasn't just what was happening during the sale, but, in the time after that as well. So yeah, just how we were really ensuring consistent messaging through every single channel. I mean, you saw the flash sale was on overlays. It was on inline banners and in VRPs, on homepage, in email, and in display marketing. It was everywhere that we could possibly be.
Will say, obviously it worked out great. Those banners were not fun to create. There's so many things.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
All of the different sizes, right? And
Yep.
that's a struggle that we continue to have when And the OEMs all do this to every single dealer. The first of the month hits, we've got no idea what the program is going to be. They might give us an inkling as to, okay, this is going to continue or not. But the first of the month hits and we go, okay, great. What are the new offers?
Right.
You have to really understand what the offers are, what we have in stock, how that's going to match the offers. And then, okay, great. Now let's get that injected everywhere in all of the channels that we have. And if that involves any sort of display banners, display advertising, okay, what sizes do we need this in? And of course, there are technologies that automate some of this stuff. But
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day, you still do need to actually, create an offer. So
Yes.
the moving really, really quickly the first couple of days of the month it's a struggle every single month. And when you bring 15 stores into this with how many different OEMs, it's a lot of moving parts. And you have to ensure that every single month that people are communicating, because there's a lot of different people who need to get the offers. So that's, I think that's the main reason why I call myself internet director. I'm directing all this traffic, just making sure the information goes where it needs to go. So the sales team is always really, really busy the last week of the month. I mean, I hope they're busy the whole month, but they're always busy the last week of the month. That first week of the month is for people in our shoes, is always just absolute mayhem, but it's super fun.
Yeah, it's so funny you mention this because this directly relates to our workflow. Like the first week and sometimes into the second, insanely busy.
Yeah.
And then week 3 and 4 is like, what's
Well,
going
you start
on?
to catch up. I mean, it's not that you're not busy, but it's just you don't
Right.
have that same frantic pace to things.
Yes.
Right. And you can check in and you can start to tweak things, but it's this big push to get everything moving. It gets even more complicated when, and Stellantis did this for years. They would change offers mid-month. Ford in the US does this often, like if there's a sell-a-thon. So you've got this frantic push the first, couple of days, week of the month. Mid-month, they go, hey, great news, our sell-a-thon offers are here. Okay, great, let's do this all over again. And it's, you worry, what's the consistent message to the consumer? How did they even know what's going on? What's a good deal? How do our salespeople know what the offer is and what's going on? Because 2 weeks even is not a long time period to have that message pushed out.
Yeah, you wake up one day and you tell your sales guys, hey, this is the new offer. And now there's a lot of confusion there probably. Kurtis, man, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Great chat. Thank you for giving an hour of your day today. I really appreciate that.
Anytime, my friend.
I hope you found some value in this conversation, just like I did. And we're excited to continue to bring interviews and conversations with dealership legends, maybe just like yourself. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. I'm your host, Braden Gingrich from Dealer Surge.